Hey guys, this is your big bad keto daddy saying, guess what? It's deadlift time! So anyway, I'm shooting this video to help my my buddies out at Ketogains. I noticed that there is more and more questions about form, squat, bench, and deadlift on the Ketogains websites. And I figured, those guys have the keto stuff covered. I don't need to go any more detail on that, but I thought I'd offer my 30 plus years of competitive powerlifting experience and maybe bring something to the table to help you guys out. So I'm going to clip together this little video and we're going to go over some of the fundamentals and maybe even a little bit of the advanced stuff and maybe little tips and tricks that I've picked up over the last 30 years of powerlifting and coaching to help you guys out. So that being said, I'm going to just start down the path. And I'm going to shoot this, first video, and if you have more questions, I will do follow-up videos, okay, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go through my fundamentals routine. I'm going to shoot some different camera angles and share some different things. So that being said, this is video one. Hopefully it provokes some questions. I doubt I'll do that good to answer them all in one shot. So anyway, here we go. So we're going to start with conventional deadlift. For those of you who are unaware what conventional deadlift is usually with your feet underneath your hips and your hands on the outside of your knees grabbing the bar. Sumo style deadlift would be a wide stance deadlift with your feet out wide and your arms between your knees. Okay, and that sumo style deadlift has actually evolved within the last decade or so, and when you're watching videos on different people's sumo deadlifting, you're going to get some different opinions. So I'm going to cover what I call conventional deadlift, sumo deadlift 1 and sumo deadlift 2. Okay, so not to confuse you, I'm going to try and go through them all. So let's just start with conventional deadlift. That's the way I deadlift, and I feel like you get the most leg drive and power out of it, but that just fits my body type. You may feel if you have good flexibility and more comfortable with it, sumo style is the way for you to go. So that being said, let's start down conventional. I always teach a lot of my powerlifting movements, they're full body movements, whether the squat, bench, or the deadlift, into two hemispheres. I always start from the belly button up, and then I do the belly button down. Okay, so the belly button up is usually really easy. I always say, and since this is across the board for squat, bench, and deadlift, you start by pulling your shoulder blades together in the back, like if someone put their finger in the middle of the back and you were trying to pinch it. Secondly, I say try to tuck them in your back pocket. That's pulling your shoulder blades down and towards your belt. So what that would look like from behind, you pull your shoulder blades together and then tuck them in your back pocket. Again, that's together, then down. So actually that does create some extension if you're looking from the side. But usually what happens with that is by the time you get down to the barbell, what that's actually causing you to do is to keep your spine nice and straight in a neutral position. Every once in a while you come across someone who has some great flexibility and they say, pull your shoulder blades together, tuck them in your back pocket, and their head's right back there in their ass. That's rare. What I'm actually trying to get you to do is get you to keep a nice, strong, neutral spine and flex your back. Okay, so next on the list, belly button down. I like to see your feet for conventional style deadlift underneath your hips and or shoulders, right in that range. Okay, so a couple of ways to check that is if you wipe your feet off, that usually gets your feet underneath your hips. Another thing you can do is 3 little hops. That usually gets your feet underneath your hips, and that'll get you in a good position to deadlift. So far we pulled our shoulder blades together, tucked them in our back pockets, and we put our feet underneath our hips. Got it? All right, so next let's go into grip. There's a couple of grip styles you'll see out there. One, if you follow me down to the bar, is a double overhand grip, and I'll zoom in on this so you guys can see a better picture. Like this, it's called the hook grip. The other is an opposing grip or an alternating grip. That's more popular in the powerlifting world. In the CrossFit and the Olympic lifting world, the hook grip is more popular. And to illustrate that, what that hook grip looks like. So here's the edge of the bar. Grab the bar, push into the bar, especially if you got Shrek-like palms like I do. Push into the bar, put your thumb around it first, grab it with your middle finger, squeeze tight with everything else. That's a hook grip, okay? The alternating grip is just very simply a regular grip alternating. And the reason, tripping on my cord here, The reason the alternating grip works so good is because this hand's trying to unroll this way and this hand's trying to unroll this way. With a hook grip, you're actually grabbing onto that thumb and holding onto the bar, and that's what's keeping it from coming out of your hands. Where that has its advantages, and I hook grip, and it's painful in the beginning, but as you get over that hump, it gets easier. Actually, about the time you build a callus on your thumb, the pain goes away. It helps create symmetry in your back and hips. Okay, so remember, I've been doing this for 30 plus years, and I use that opposing grip for the majority of my powerlifting career. And what started to happen is I started getting a lot of uneven symmetry in my upper back and hips. And it actually got to the point for when I started squatting, I started curving. So I'm a big fan of the hook grip just because it keeps muscular symmetry in your body, also keeps you from twisting. Also with the hook grip, if you can develop it well, it keeps this bicep from being exposed to a tear, if that makes sense, because a lot of people will tend to try and keep a little bit of a bend to their arm. You'll see this very popular in strongman with tire flip. As they come up the bar, and then they're trying to keep a lot of tension on that bicep, and next thing you know, poof, it pops up and you see that bicep flop right up like it's a bad set of blinds in your room there or something. So hook grip, it's my grip of choice, but it is kind of hard to develop because after a while your thumbs hurt. You can try chalking the hell out of them, you can try taping them, but what really comes down to is you kind of got to suck it up for a little while till that callus builds, and then you'll have a good hook grip strength, and you won't notice that pain some more. It becomes less sensitive. You actually do desensitize your thumb a little bit. So that being said, most of my videos are going to be with hook grip, double overhand grip, and there's some actual torque advantages that I'm going to illustrate. I'm going to move the camera over to the side when I actually start doing some deadlifts to show you guys how to set up. But just to recap again, we'll pull our shoulder blades together, tuck them in our back pocket, we get our feet underneath our hips. I'm going to go with a double overhand grip. So now I'm going to move the camera to the side so I can illustrate descending to the bar and bring up some good points about torque, and also bring up some good points about starting position. All right. So now we're going to start talking about descending to the bar, and I'm going to illustrate a couple of different things here. One in particular is getting to the bar as well as coming off the floor. One of the most important things that you can learn about coming off the floor is, all right, so this is a deadlift and it's considered a pull. But when you come off the floor, I don't want you to think about pulling. What I want you to think about doing is once you get down to the bar and grab it, and this is regardless if you do a opposing grip or if you do a hook grip. Once you get down to the bar and you get it set up and you get ready to pull, I want you to think about not pulling the bar up as much as I want you to think about pushing your feet through the floor. What this does is teaches you to engage the muscles in such a way that it will leave your low back less exposed to damage. Okay, so if you get down to that barbell and you're thinking, I'm going to push my feet through the floor versus I'm going to bend over and pick something up, you will be light years ahead of where you need to be. Okay, so another thing I want to bring up, we talked about grip, and a lot of times you see very well intended, a lot of these videos about trying to break the bar or trying to snap the bar. And that's very confusing for a lot of people. So what they're actually talking about, and this is true in the bench, this is true in the squat, this is true in the deadlift, what they're talking about is not trying to break the bar up like that. They're telling you to twist in towards your pinky. So if you're holding this bar, they want you to twist towards your pinky. So like this. That kind of break the bar. Okay? And that has a lot of advantages while deadlifting. Okay, so keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that. Same with the bench press. If you're set up on the bench press and you try to break the bar like that, that engages a lot of the right muscles and puts the bar path in a premium position. I'm going to shoot another video on benching and squatting at a later date. So anyway, keep that in the back of your mind, and we're going to talk about descending to the bar. So we've already pulled our shoulder blades together, tucked them in our back pocket. Our feet are underneath our hips. And we're going to descend to the bar. There's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to go through how I do it, and then I'm going to talk about some alterations. Okay, so let's talk about getting to the bar. Your arms aren't bent, okay? So almost across the board, your arms are almost always considered hooks in this movement. Okay, so those are just going straight to the bar. When you come off the ground, your arms are just straight hooks to it. There's no shrug or roll at the top, okay? So how close do I get to the bar? This is arguable under the point that the bar shouldn't be up against your shins, but it should be up against your shins. Okay, so if you're standing over top of the bar, a lot of people argue mid-foot, a lot of people argue just where your toes start, some people do say right up on your shins. That has a lot to do with how long your femur is and how long your shin bone is, okay, your tibia. And that's different for everybody. What I have found over years and years of coaching is that if you tell them to get your shins on the bar and you descend into that lift position, your shins are going to push that bar forward almost exactly to where it needs to be. I've always found a little tighter is better than a little farther away. The reason being is that that's going to set you up to push your feet through the floor better. So if I'm in this position and the bar's on my shins and I just need to slide it right up my legs, I'm in a lot better position than if I happen to be rolled out a little bit and try to pick up, which would cause me to round. So if I'm in this position and the bar's on my shins, a couple of different reasons. In CrossFit I like it, or CrossFit style workouts, is because if you have someone who's just huffing and puffing and breathing hard, and they're coming to the bar to get a little bit of a rest and get 3 breaths before they start, they know where the bar is, as opposed to hunting for it. That's another advantage, especially if you guys are doing like these really crazy heavy workouts. Again, feet underneath your hips, shoulder blades pulled together. I put my shins on the bar. It gives me sense of awareness. As I come down, it pushes that bar into position. Okay. Another thing you'll see argued, and this is really the difference between Olympic style lifting and deadlifting, is where your shoulder center should be to the bar. So this point to this point. With a deadlift, you want this straight over the top of this. You don't want to put yourself in a mechanical disadvantage with your low back to get this up. You want your bar path as straight as possible. So if you're in the starting position, you want that shoulder, center of that shoulder cap right over that barbell, which now brings me to that point about torque I taught you. If you get down to the bar, get set up, and do the torque thing, see how my shoulder rolls back? Puts you in a better position to pull. Keeps you from starting in a rounded position to pull. Torque, no torque. Torque, no torque. Puts you in a much better position to get that barbell off the ground. That being said, there is also leg and hip torque. And this will be true when you squat. What they're talking about there, again, how we twisted into our pinkies before, is what I want you to do when the bar is down by your shins. Still twist towards your pinky. With your legs and hips, same thing. Get set up, screw your feet into the ground. That tightens up everything in your hips. All right? So this is a lot of information. You may have to replay this if you're going to really analyze this video. So let me make sure we're lined back up here. So descending to the bar, arms are hooks. We're going to get into position, create a little bit of torque with our feet, screwing your feet into the ground. Descend to the bar. I drop my hips down to the bar. I'm just aware of the bar. Sometimes I'll glance down with my peripheral vision to where my grip is, because you'll want your hands even on the bar, usually straight down from your shoulders. Even up. From here you got your torque. You create torque. Chin up, try to keep your spine in a neutral position, and push your feet through the floor, dragging right up your legs. So from here, from the ground to your knee, your hips and back should move at the same time. Okay? Where you see a lot of people say your hips shot up, that means you went boom, like that. And then that puts your low back in a bad position. So from mid-shin to the top of your knee, that's where your hips and shoulders should move at the same time. See how they're moving at the same rate? As soon as you get past your knee, that's when you straighten everything up and you squeeze your glutes as hard as possible. Here's another piece of bad information that goes around, is the rollback at the top. Not necessary. Just like this is a bad position, this is a bad position, because you can have that forward shearing strength on your low back, okay? So you want a nice neutral spine, stand up at the top, especially for those of us compete, you just have to stand up and lock it out. That doesn't mean a roll, and that doesn't mean back like this, like you're leaning over the fence. If you're doing reps, I think it's very important to get to the top, squeeze your butt. What that does is pushes your hips back underneath your spine and aligns everything, especially if you're doing a ton of reps and getting fatigued and all of a sudden you feel your low back frying. All right, so descending to the bar, same way. Now what I want to teach you how to do is cue the muscles and load them. On the bar, cue your muscles. And what you mean by that is tell them that they're about to work. If you squeeze your butt before you descend, that cues your glutes. And I want you to take a big deep breath into your abdomen. If you haven't practiced breathing into your abdomen, that's key for a good solid deadlift because it gives you a nice solid base. If you're a lung breather, where your lungs come up, doesn't you do as much as good as learning to breathe into your belly. Gives you stability in the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to cue our hips, squeeze your butt, breathe into your belly, push back into your hamstrings while creating that torque, screwing your legs into the ground, come down to the bar, grab it, squeeze it, push into the floor like you're pushing your feet through the floor. Hit your knees. Drop my mic. I hope you guys got that. All right, I'm going to stop the video for a second, review it, and see what I forgot. All right, guys, so I'm back. So I had mentioned briefly about that difference between Olympic-style lift off the ground and a deadlift. And I talked about how the deadlift, you were over, your shoulder cap was over the center of the bar. The difference between with the Olympic lift is they get down to the bar and they're slightly in front of the bar. And the reason being is that as they come up through the floor, they shoot their knees back and get into a position where this huge hip hinge happens and they can get into their third position, and jump through the motion. Where the key being is this shins back lever, where deadlift is stand up. That's why the difference between the shoulder cap above the bar and the shoulder cap and slightly in front of the bar, driving your knees back. One being the conventional deadlift, the other being sumo. So that being said, let's go over Sumo 1 and Sumo 2. A lot of it being the same, but I will explain the differences. I'm going to move the camera around to the front one more time, and we'll go through that real quick. All right, guys. All right, I'm back. Let's talk about Sumo 1 and Sumo 2. So, you'll see people setting up different ways, sumo deadlift. Like I said before, that's with your feet outside and your arms between your knees. You'll see it set up a lot like this. This is like what I would call Sumo 1. Okay, same thing. You get set up, you get to the top, you squeeze your glutes, you push back into your hamstrings and butt, load your spine with your big breath. After you pull your shoulder blades together, tuck them in your back pocket. That part's all the same. And as you come through the floor, you're going to push your feet through the floor. Okay, that would be Sumo 1. That's very similar to a wide stance squat. Okay. Where you see differences now in what I call Sumo 2 is you'll see people getting their feet way out to the plates, maybe within a half an inch to the plates, and their feet are completely turned out. Coming off the ground for that one is different. Okay, and I've seen some people pull some crazy weights in this style, mostly because the range of motion is so short and it's almost all hip strength, and there's almost no low back in it. Do I recommend one over the other? I, like everything else, think everything has its place. You will find what works best for you, and you might use these 3 different style of deadlifts as accessories to the one that you like the best. That being said, so there's this new, well, I would call a more popular style now, Sumo 2, feet way out, pointed out. Now, when you, a lot of it's the same, but some of it's different as far as how you come off the ground. First 2 lifts, I said that you push your feet through the floor. This one's different in the respect that you're almost sliding your feet out and underneath the bar, or at least that's the way it feels when you're pulling. So this one, still same. Breathe into your belly, pull your shoulder blades together, tuck them in your back pocket, hands down between your knees. Where do I grab? Right underneath your shoulders. Try to stay right underneath your shoulders. You'll end up figuring out where the knurling is on your favorite barbell. Mine usually ends up being 2 fingers on the knurling, 2 fingers off. But anyway, so coming off the ground with this uber wide deadlift stances, you get your chest up, neutral spine as much as possible, and it's almost like you're trying to slide your feet underneath the barbell, like that. It's not so much a push through the floor as it is a slide out and pull back. And like I said, I've seen people do a ton of weight this way. And just another way to do it. So we've covered conventional deadlift, we've covered Sumo 1, Sumo 2, Sumo 1 being almost a little bit of a straightforward. For those of you who are popular with powerlifters, Ed Cohen lifts this way. He's no slouch. He's pulled a ton, 800 pounds. And then you'll see a ton of people doing this Sumo 2i style, way out wide, where you try to slide your feet underneath the bar. None of them, right or wrong. You've got to find out what works for you, your body type, your morphology, your flexibility. I hope that helps. Keep some questions coming. A couple things I'd like to talk about is shoes. I always deadlift in Chuck Taylors. I have for a million years. Westside Barbell is a big fan of these style too. There's a couple of different reasons. There's almost no padding in these shoes. I mean, they're pretty much modern day moccasins. What is an advantage is like opposed to a wrestling shoe, is that it has a squared off heel. Okay? That helps keep from rolling over. So if you're driving out the sides of your shoes, whether you're creating torque or you're doing the other sumo style or squatting and creating torque, it keeps your heel from rolling over. Where a wrestling shoe would be nice and flat, which would be okay maybe for conventional style deadlift, or even you'll see people conventional style deadlift in their socks, is because they're not really creating any outward movement. Wide stance squatters get out nice and wide and have that little bit of a squared heel, keeps their foot from rolling over. That being said, don't try to milk out a pair of Chucks, for 20 years, because they do eventually wear out and roll over, and you could get hurt. So be careful with that. These things used to be cheap. Now Nike bought Converse, and they're like $1 kajillion. That being said, this is a deadlift jack. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. A lot of you guys that are new to the gym, this is kind of like the creme de la creme. I'm working out, so I don't want to lift the weights kind of thing. Makes it easier to load and unload the bar. There's different versions of that. Something simple like this you can keep in your gym bag, something simple like this you can keep in your gym bag as a wedge. You just put it under one plate, and then you can slide the other plates on. You can use a 5-pound plate to do that, or a 2.5 to do that. They have one-ended jacks, same thing if you want to do one at a time, which is actually not too bad. It's just kind of hard to keep in your gym bag. It's nice if you have a gym owner who's into that kind of thing. So I think that's all I needed to cover. Conventional. I really appreciate everybody at Ketogains. You guys are great. I wish I could make it to Tampa this year. Not going to happen. Maybe we'll do Vegas again next year. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not that Jamie likes Vegas. But anyway, all right, so have a good day, guys. Post your comments below. I'm going to edit this up so it's not as painful and choppy as much as possible. Again, this is your big bad keto daddy saying it's deadlift day.